everyone. Nice to see you. Thank you, Karen.
Hi, my name is Karen Boite, and I am a part of the Ontario Autism Coalition, and this is
Irwin Elman.
And go ahead, please.
I'm the former child advocate for Ontario and now a supporter of the OAC.
So I'm not seeing anybody joining us yet, which is okay, which is quite all right. We'll give them a sec, but I don't like to wait too long, because if someone's looking at this after the fact, then it's boring just to look at, us, you and I, killing time.
Okay, we won't kill time.
Okay, so, there's Aaron, and there's Altusa. Hello. Hi, guys. Hello.
Hi, everyone.
I'm going to wait 30 seconds, and then I'm going to start asking Irwin questions. And if you happen to have a question and you're watching, please feel free to post them. I'm just going to... You haven't heard any good jokes lately?
Well,
I'll put you on the spot.
Just the one this morning in Pickering, so...
Oh, my gosh.
That was outrageous, yeah.
Whoa. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you live out...
I live out that way.
Right?
I live out that way. It was a little bit harrowing.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and I was thinking about the Durham crew big time. I see Virginia's there. Yeah, that was scary. Okay, well, that's not really a good joke.
It wasn't a good joke.
Oops. Oh! I dumped something. What did I dump? Nothing. Okay, let's get started, shall we?
We should.
Yeah, we should start. Okay, hi everybody. My name is Karen. I am from the Ontario Autism Coalition, and we know this is Irwin Elman. Irwin, who the heck are you? What's the big deal about you?
There is no big deal about me.
Well,
I'm a tired old man. That's
old man.
Yeah, who used to be the child advocate for Ontario.
Okay, what was that? What's being the
Yes.
You're talking to child advocates and others.
I know.
And friends of child advocates.
I know.
Okay, so what is the child advocate?
It's
what was?
So I always said, people who know me know I've said I was one among many child advocates in the province, but I was the child advocate because I had a piece of legislation that guided what I was supposed to do, passed unanimously by the legislature, which made me Ontario's child advocate.
Okay. When did that start?
That started in 2007, and I was the first child advocate for the province, independent child advocate, reporting to the legislature. So I had to set up the office and carry it forward till the last election. And
yeah, and it changed. So
changed, that's an understatement. Yes.
Yeah, it changed.
Yeah.
So what was your role there? What did you do?
Well, myself and my office, guided by our legislation, were responsible for partnering with children and youth to bring their issues forward, and that's the definition of advocacy that was in our act. And we were supposed to pay attention to children who are served under the Child and Youth Family Service Act. So children in conflict with the law, children connected to child welfare, children with disabilities, including children with autism. Our act also said pay attention to First Nations children. And it did mention pay attention to children with disabilities too in the introduction.
So how did people find your office?
Well, in some parts of the act, and we just when we were closing, that increased, but some parts of the act and the Child and Youth Family Service Act told service providers like the Children's Aid Societies that they must tell every month children in care about our office and provide them with our phone number or Facebook page or however they could get in touch with us.
And children in care are?
Children in care of the Children's Aid Societies.
Okay.
Who've legally been taken from their homes by the Children's Aid on behalf of the government for their own protection. And people know, I'm sure, that their lives are pretty difficult in the system, because the system can be pretty unforgiving. And our job was to stand with them and stand with any child who made contact with us and make sure their voice was heard. Parents could call us. We often would say, because our act said we could only advocate with permission of the child, that we needed to speak to the child to make sure they wanted us to work with the parent, but we did often. And if a child couldn't speak for themselves, then of course the parents could.
Mm-hmm. What kinds of cases did you deal with? Are you allowed to give us some specific examples of, let's say you get a phone call from a child in a group home, for example?
We would.
What kinds of things would you deal with?
Well, I tell people that the kinds of calls we would get could be something as serious, and I'm remembering the last few weeks when we were open, the children who spoke about being in a restraint in a group home and had their arm broken, and they were phoning from a hospital. And the thing that was so serious about that, beyond serious, it's obviously a broken arm is serious.
Yeah.
But they were in a holding when their arm was already broken, and they were in a cast, and then they were in a holding again, so they were phoning from the hospital because it was the second time their arm was broken in that same group home. And other times I remember taking a call myself personally because I wanted to know what my staff would be dealing with about a child in a group home, 14-year-old who was, it's a long story, but complaining that she didn't have enough salad dressing on her salad, and the home had put a moratorium on salad dressing, and there was so much salad dressing in the fridge, but the kids weren't allowed to use it. She thought that was crazy, and they had a plan. The young people will use a thimble. I didn't know they knew what thimbles were in this day and age, but she said, we have a thimble, and we're going to use a thimble of salad dressing and for each of us, and they still won't let us have salad dressing. And she said something like, I know salad dressing isn't in the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, but this is ridiculous. So I had to talk to the group home to diffuse that. But I was thinking about that. And you know what happens in those group homes? Oftentimes, if children and young people don't have someone to stand with them, mediate, what happens is that girl, instead of phoning us, tells the group home staff to F off. And the group home staff says, there's a consequence, go to your room, whatever the consequence
no
is.
salad dressing for you.
For the rest of the time,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And what then? The girl, because she's got baggage too,
sure,
takes the plate and throws it at the staff. And now the police are called. And the girl gets charged. All over salad dressing.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when young people don't have a voice, particularly there. But also, we often got, and this is maybe relevant to the people listening, we often got calls from parents who were at their wits' end, who I felt, even though our office was designed to stand with children, parents were at their wits' end with nobody really standing with them.
Yeah.
And I mean, our office, what we were supposed to do is make sure children were heard. And there is a really healing, when people feel heard, you're almost halfway home in a conflict or more. Yes. It's true about our relationships with our partners, certainly my wife.
Yes.
It's not about listening. It's about, because listening is when, when my wife, we used to come home from work and I say she asked me how my day was, and I say it. She tells me how her day was, and I start looking at my phone. Yeah, I'm sure there's no other men listening or anybody knows about. So I used to do that, and just say, "You're not listening to me."
Yeah,
and I am.
But I am,
because you repeat back the exact words you just said, and it's not that kind of listening that.
But it's not listening the way
need.
She needs you to listen,
you
which
need
is
to hear.
Look at me and hear it.
And
hear it.
Be engaged. And don't try and solve everything like a man would.
Don't try to solve everything in the moment, right?
Listen and hear and understand me.
It's interesting that you bring this up.
Parents and children need that.
Yes, I completely agree.
And that's not how governments act. It's not how service providers act. It's not how systems act.
Yeah, and maybe some parents. Maybe some parents.
Well, I didn't.
You didn't say that.
I wasn't acting that way all the time.
Not
my default position.
Well, we've had an interesting weekend on our Facebook page, and there has been a lot of conversations that seem to me have been going like this, right? That people have a point of view, and then we just can't quite meet up, the different perspectives and hearing. People don't feel heard. Very frustrating thing in our community, especially.
Painful.
Very painful. Very painful. Lee wants you to go back a little bit in time.
Okay,
So
Lee.
Lee says,
Darn Lee.
how did you first become involved with advocacy? And what led you to the path as Ontario's child advocate?
Well, it all started out, no.
Tell us.
No, I'm not starting with 19 whatever.
Let's start at the very beginning.
No, that's too boring.
Okay, it's too boring.
Yeah. You know, I guess I was a teacher by training. So I moved from Ottawa, where I grew up, to Toronto to go to teachers college. I got a teaching degree. I couldn't find a teaching job, kind of similar to what's going to happen in Ontario, I fear, in the next little while. And somebody told me, oh, there's this job at Children's Aid Toronto to set up a center for young people leaving Children's Aid care. And it was for a job with all the Children's Aid societies, so a standalone center. And they said, you should apply. I decided to. I didn't actually know what Children's Aid was. I didn't know what youth in care meant. I didn't. And so I got
they
hired.
hired you.
It was a fluke, and I got hired. And it was one of the luckiest things that I didn't know anything, was because I tell people that it's where I started to listen to young people, because if I didn't listen to them when they came to our center, I didn't know what they needed. I had no idea. Yeah. So I was smart enough, not smart.
I think some people would disagree.
Savvy enough to know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I had to listen to them. And from that moment, those young people started shining. I read Shine in the Light of Their Full Potential. And I kind of felt like over 20 years there. And then even as the advocate, if there was any accolades that came to me, it's because I was shining, walking alongside them in their bright light, and the light fell on me. And that happens when you listen to people.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that told me I should apply when 10, 11 years ago, 12 years ago now, when the advocate's job was posted by the legislature. It was those young people or former young people who said, why aren't you going to apply? And I said, I'll never get the job, which I believed. And I think people could believe that now. And I said, I'll never get the job. And they said, well, what would you tell us? You would have told us you can never have a job you don't apply for. So just apply. If you want the job, apply, get off your ass and apply. And I did. And I sold the province on what we were going to do, which was take that partnership with Children and Youth seriously. And we built an office that seriously believed in the young people we had to serve, all of them, every single last one, and believed that what they had to say was important and that they should be seen as people. Because if you're not heard, that is the painful thing about people not feeling heard. If you're not heard, you often don't feel like a real person. Yeah. You feel like a file or a statistic, right? A number. Yeah. Something other than a real person. And
tell me about your staff. Okay. What did they do?
Well, we had advocates that answered the calls that came in from young people, from parents, and found ways to make sure their voice was heard. And we would follow a call or we didn't even like saying them case. We would stay with a person until they said they were done. So we wouldn't give up. We would try and be relentless. If a person felt like enough, whatever happened wasn't enough, then we would stay with them until they felt their voice was heard. So they did that. They did systemic work. So we did some work where we would look at services, whether it was in youth justice or child welfare, or special needs, and could review an agency or a particular group home, all from the point of view of the people receiving the service. And then we brought young people together, like in this group, We Have Something to Say, which was a group of young people
I'll get
with
to that.
disabilities.
I'll get to that. Did you ever work specifically with autistic children who approached the office, or children with disabilities that approached the office?
Yeah, of course.
Can you tell me a story about one of those kids?
Yeah. I don't know if this is where you're going, but the story that I tell a lot about is I went once to a group. I went to visit young people at a place called Darling Homes. And I don't know if you know Darling Home. It's a place where, this is my definition of it, a place where young people who are medically fragile would go, and oftentimes go because their life expectancy wasn't very long, and they needed intensive medical support near the end of their life. It was a pretty difficult place. But when I went in, I have to say, it was one of the places where you'd go in, and even though it looked institutional, I felt like, parents will know this, there are places you go and you go, oh.
Yeah.
Nobody has not to say anything to you. You just go, it's got the it.
You just know.
It's got it.
Yeah,
right?
it's got it. Yeah.
And that was one of those places. It was institutional looking, but it felt good.
Yeah.
And I met a nurse, and she took me around on a tour, because they like to do that when I was the advocate. I came across this 12-year-old, she said, and he was lying in his bed. He couldn't move. He couldn't speak. And I didn't know how he communicated. So I was not used to dealing with, see how I said that? I was not used to working with, communicating with young people.
It's hard to find the words, even for a pro such as yourself.
Yeah, I can be ableist with the best of them. I'm sure I can. I just need to check myself, have people check me. So
we all work on that.
So I didn't know. I was not competent how to communicate with this person. So I asked her, how do you communicate? And she said, well, he can move his tongue, and he can communicate with his tongue, yes or no, and things like that. And she also said, sometimes people, like this young man, when he's upset, you know it a lot more than people who can speak. We know when he's upset and when he's happy. Yeah. And you communicate in relationship. And I noticed around his bed, there's all this Montreal Canadian stuff, paraphernalia, banners and stuff. And I thought, I'm a Montreal fan. So I asked her, that's why I began asking her how to communicate with him, because I was wondering, how do you know he's a Montreal Canadian fan? Yeah. Right? And she was telling me all this. So I go, okay. It was on the way home that I realized, that's a gift this fellow gave me. I was a Montreal Canadian fan before they traded PK Subban, and now I'm an Leaf fan. So I was a Montreal Canadian fan. So me and this 12-year-old boy, who was probably going to die, who couldn't move, from my point of view, couldn't speak, me and him are the same, because we're members of the same tribe, not Jewish. We're members of the same tribe. We're Montreal Canadian fans. Yeah. He now is not a kid in a bed who can't speak and talk. He's a Montreal Canadian fan. And those Montreal Canadian paraphernalia around were his voice. And it made him what young people who have disabilities have told me over and over again. They want to be more than their disability. Yeah. So to me, I realized, well, him being a Montreal Canadian fan and being like me makes him more than that 12-year-old boy who's about to die lying in a bed. And that's something that I kept, that young man gave me, that I kept in my mind every time I would work with a parent, work with kids with disabilities, bring young people together. Yeah. To realize that it's very profound. Yeah.
We're all people.
Yeah.
I had similar experiences watching my son at a preschool for special needs children, and there were many different disabilities and children with different challenges, and in the beginning, mm-hmm. I would cry as I would leave the building because they had such huge challenges. It was very difficult to see a small child having so many obstacles in life and what's going to happen to this child. And it didn't take long at all before the disability disappeared, and that was Charlie, and that was Ryan, and that was Sajeev, and that was, it didn't take long at all. All right, question from Kristen. Could you ask Irwin to talk about what available routes we have for advocacy help now that his office is closed? Ombudsman,
Mm-hmm.
how to best go about that?
Well, I mean, call. It's true. You do have the. You would think you have the ombudsman. The ombudsman's can advocate. No, can't advocate. Can look for systemic fairness, administrative fairness. I think is what they call it. It specifically isn't allowed to advocate. But I know that when some of our staff went over to do investigations or do what they call sorts. Early resolution, some of our staff went over when our office closed.
Yeah.
I think that's what you can ask me. That they influenced the ombudsman to understand his role of seeking administrative fairness a little bit differently, so that there is some listening that should go on at the ombudsman's office. So I think you could still call there. I think some members of parliament, MPPs, have picked up the slack in their constituency offices. I think when I used to want to know what to do about a case, even when I was a child advocate, I would go on your OAC website and look and read. Ask
the OAC.
Yes. There are no
That's
better.
That's not what we want to hear, Owen.
I'm telling you, I wasn't. Didn't we start out by saying I was not the only child advocate in the province? And there is, what we had as a child advocate's office was we had access, meaning, politicians people needed to meet with us. You couldn't say, no, we're not going to meet. So we could open doors for people.
Okay, so you got in the door.
And we had resources.
Yeah.
That meant our job was to do this, right? So we could pay for transportation for parents or kids to go to a meeting, or we could go ourselves, or we could do whatever we needed to do to try and make a resolution happen. So, but the expertise always lay, remember, we were partnering with children and youth to bring their issues forward. We understood that the lived experience was in the children and youth and the parents, not us in an office in Toronto or even in Thunder Bay. It was our partnership with those resources and access and commitment to, I'll use that word, to justice. That partnership was important, but also to acknowledge that the experts were the people with the lived experience, which is why I'm here. I mean,
to back up a little bit about the ombudsman.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want you to slag any former colleagues.
Yeah.
But you are an outsider now.
I am.
So, maybe you have a little more freedom than you once had.
I feel it.
Follow
me on Twitter. You'll notice.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So, how effective do you think a meeting with the ombudsman would be? So the autism issue or any issue? Around the autism issue. Let's say a child's been excluded for an extended period of time from school, over a year.
Yeah.
And they
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. The ombudsman has, beyond us, he has the oversight of the education system. So where before the ombudsman might say, oh, it's school, I can't do anything. Well, now it's the autism services and the school he has oversight of.
Yeah.
But there's this thing that the ombudsman has in his act that says all other avenues of advocacy or resolution have to be taken.
Yes.
And yes, the school boards and the ridiculousness of the school boards.
Yeah.
To get through their.
So how does a parent show? I mean, if none of us seem to know what to do, how do we show that we have pursued every avenue possible before we can go to someone like the ombudsman?
you take, like, you only have to do, with the school board, you'd only have to do one avenue, make a complaint to the school board, whatever the mechanism is for complaints in the school board. Right, if it's fill out the form, and you're done.
Okay.
Say it's the ombudsman, I filled out a form, they haven't responded. The ombudsman probably will reach out to the school board and say, why don't you respond to these people?
So is it a good idea for parents and self-advocates to go through the motions even if they know they will have zero results at the various levels?
I think that's, to me,
yeah.
I think I used to talk to my staff about, you can't, like, we could go to deputy minister, but you can't get to deputy minister till you've gone up the ladder. Even if you know, you have to go up the ladder, go up the ladder, go up the ladder, and don't allow them, this isn't being me, to delay you, right? So don't wait for a response. Give yourself, I'm going to send this email in a week. I'm going to go up to the supervisor or the manager at the ministry, and I'm going to go to the regional director, then I'm going to go to figure out who the assistant deputy minister is. I'm going to figure out who the deputy is. Then I'll get to the minister. And once all that is a dead end, then you've got other tactics where, when do I want to go to the media, if I ever do or not, right? And be clear about what good would look like. What's the resolution that you need.
How do you word an email to elicit a response quickly?
Well, one thing to do is CC, right? So
CC people.
Yes, so that on, and I don't mean CC the minister, stuff like that, but if you're climbing up a ladder, so you CC the person above them. So if you're writing a regional director, you can CC the assistant deputy minister, so they know that you know. Right.
Do you announce you're coming by CCing, or do you CC after you've given up on one office and then you go to the next and you CC the person who didn't respond to you and then move up?
I don't know. I think it could depend, but I would do it. I do it the other way around. Yeah. I would, let's say I'm going to regional director, I would write them and then CC their boss when I'm writing them, so that when they don't answer me, I'll go to their boss. Right.
Lee asks, many years ago there was the position of official guardian. Yeah. I assume this is the same as the child advocate position.
No.
Is there a similar position in the Ontario government that took the place of the child? So this just, okay, so official guardian, do you know what that is? So what's that?
The official guardian is around to be the trustee for people who are not deemed competent and have nobody else who can look after their personal affairs or their finances.
Okay. Would that be a social worker in some cases, or?
Could be. There could be a social worker, could be a lawyer that is assigned at the official guardian's office.
Okay. Is there a similar position that the Ontario government that took the place of the child advocate position, so that they get rid of you and just make a new office?
No.
Because they don't like you?
No.
We don't like Irwin. He's fired.
Well, I'm sure they didn't, but probably don't like me. They like me even less now. But
yeah.
No, that was awful. I mean, it was really ridiculous. It was the same time when, just after it was when, the Lisa MacLeod did, I dared never to say her name, that minister.
She who will not be named.
She who will not be named.
Yeah,
did her thing with autism funding. They were acting with all the charm and tact of a cement mixer, and they, without any warning, no warning, they put forward legislation in the legislature to repeal our act, close our office with no explanation, no warning to us or anybody. And I heard about it on the CBC at 11 o'clock.
You heard about it on the news before?
Yeah. And I phoned your friends, Tim Porter and the minister who shall not be named. And Tim Porter told me, well, I don't know anything about it. So
Really?
yeah. And so he said, let me go check it out.
Wow.
So he gets back to me at
Doesn't know
12:45.
anything about it?
12:45, he found out 15 minutes before the legislation was going to be tabled. Well, what a coincidence. And he said,
Wow.
well, Irwin, yeah, that's true. And then his words were, you had a nice little run. So that was it. And I asked for an explanation.
Yeah.
No.
Welcome to our
never.
world. Now.
And then
Yeah.
it passed, and I said, okay, it passed. I just want to know. I want to meet the minister and let her tell me what that was about. Why?
Yeah. Why?
Because people may not know. I was there for 10 years. By my legislation only gave me 2 5-year terms. My term was up in October. I kept bugging them, saying, I will not stay. Wrote the clerk, the speaker, can we put something in place?
Yeah.
I met Lisa. She asked me for help to find somebody just after she was elected. I was supposed to leave in October, and when that bill came forward, I decided I wasn't going to leave, and they would have to have a vote in the legislature to get rid of me. But I was kind of like going down with my staff to make sure be as helpful to them as I could and to the young people involved in office.
Yeah.
But never, and not since, have I ever had an explanation. If it was about me, just want to say this, I was gone. Like, it couldn't have been about me. They could replace me. If it was, they didn't like what our office was doing, interpreting our act, well, hire somebody who was going to interpret the way they liked it. If it was about money, cut our damn budget, right? That's fine.
Yeah.
Cut our budget.
It's pretty
But
sudden.
repealing our act is
sudden.
huge, and leaving us as the only province without a child advocate. What used to be only PEI didn't have one, but now PEI does. And the territories, I was just contacted by the Northwest Territories, which is the only territory now that doesn't have a child advocate. And they wanted to know, could I give them a copy of our act, because they wanted to model it.
Angela, I noticed your comment and it disappeared on the scroll. Go ahead and post it, and we'll get to your question. Jesse says, do you think that they closed your office so we couldn't go through you to complain about the autism cuts in funding?
I think that they thought, what? Why would, this is what the thing, we have plans. Our plans, and this is something that, again, I don't mind saying his name, Tim Porter said, Irwin, our government is interested in basically four things, and not one of them is children. So we're not going to spend money on that.
So he said we're interested in four things, and not one of them is children.
Not one of those 4 things. It's true. We've proven it right. And I think they thought, we're going to do some stuff, and why would we pay an office that's independent to criticize us?
Yeah.
I think they were thinking that.
Yeah.
And back then, they just said, so get rid of it. They did the same thing with the Environment Commissioner. We're going to do some things. Why would we have an independent officer that might be paid to criticize what we were doing?
So that, you think that was a political decision and not a financial decision?
It's not a financial
trim the
decision.
fat?
It was not a financial decision. They've never said that it was. It was not a ministry decision, I don't believe. Because when I went to the next meeting with the ministry, they were, at least 2 of the staff that knew our office very well, were crying in the meeting. And I would say felt shamed. So it wasn't their decision. It came from a political end of things. It was a complete political decision, which I believe if they had their way now with their new tone, they wouldn't make the same decision, and certainly not in the same way. Mm-hmm. They would have some discussion and some rationale, maybe expert panel. I think you're used to that. An
expert panel.
Expert panel with a report.
Maybe with a report.
And then starve us to death the way they're doing in the ministry to say the equity programming in the Ministry of Education, or what used to be MCYS.
Yeah. Yeah, we were certainly very surprised by the tone of the Ford gang at the beginning of their administration. We were wondering if they had paid attention at all to what had happened to the McKinney team.
Yeah.
And then to suddenly take this very hard line with our families was quite a shock. Really. It was a big wake-up call and a shock for many people.
It's sad. What's sad to me about it is that these people, especially not the Ford Nation people or the conservatives like Tim Porter, who came over from the former Harper government,
mm-hmm.
but the Tories that were there, even like Lisa MacLeod or the Solicitor General who was on TV about Pickering today, they thirsted for this opportunity at government, thirsted for it, wanted it so badly, had come to so many elections where they thought
passionate
they were going to win.
Opposition people.
They thought they were going to win, and then they come to power so angry.
Yeah,
I believe
they
so
never
angry,
turned the anger off, did they?
So angry, so self-righteous about this gravy train that it's almost like they couldn't help themselves, and it's sad. It was sad what they did with their opportunity. And from my point of view, let's hope, pray to God that this opportunity is their last opportunity for a while, and they can go back to opposition and sort of reflect on how they've blown this.
Sharon asks, how do we keep focused on the end game when there are so many views and needs out there which can derail us?
How do you keep
focused on the end game when there are so many views and needs out there?
Well, my experience is that if you continue, and this is true of anybody, and if we're doing advocacy, if we can have people, even in decision-making positions, or people who criticize the way we're advocating, I know that's happened too. Mm-hmm. If people can still put children at the center and focus on the children, then it's very possible that people can come around. And so keeping an eye on the end game isn't about a system, it's about children. And frankly, I hope I'm saying this right, but I don't care what system the government comes up with for funding for autism. What I care about is, will children get what they need when they need it? All children. Yeah. And will parents have the support that they need when they need it? Mm-hmm. Whatever the system is, who gives a crap?
Yeah.
How much money it costs? It's none of my business. I don't care. All I care about, and what I think we can focus on, is kids and the people that support them, their families. And it's not about systems. So the more we can stop getting deflected away from talking about how much money things are going to cost and systems, it's irrelevant. How are we going to make sure these children get what they need when they need it? That's why I really resent, some of the comments that this new version of the ministry and this new minister talks about, where he talks about as many kids as possible.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to hear that.
Yeah, that's not very Canadian.
I don't want to hear about institutions.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about systems. I don't want to hear about money. If you can't, as a minister, get it done so that all kids get what they need when they need it, move aside.
Yeah.
Let somebody else get to the table who's willing to try. That's it.
That's it.
Period.
Yeah.
It's that simple. And so that end game has to be kids, and keep focused on that.
How does one tip public perception from viewing us as a group of complainers to one of advocates? So we were talking about this before we turned on the laptop. Yeah. Are the OAC a bunch of complainers, or are we advocates? What's your impression of the OAC?
I think that, so I think that the OAC is, and the autism resistance, the autism lobby, you're not a lobby. The power that you have, the relentlessness that you have, the tactics, the range of tactics that people use, the commitment to the children that you're fighting for is unparalleled. There is no, I'm not just saying this, it's well known. It was well known before this fight with this conservative government started. It was
Right.
known by the previous Liberal government not to tangle with you. They were warned.
Yeah.
And
Did you warn them not to tangle with us?
No, I did not. No, because I wasn't focused on. I was focused on the kids.
Yeah.
Get it done.
Get her done.
Right.
Yeah.
But you are known and as this incredible force in the front. There's no group organized around a particular group of kids or issue. The environmental movement in Ontario is not as strong as the parents of kids with autism. It's not. And so for me, I used to ask our friend Laura, who I'm thinking about
she
her
better
with
be
her
watching.
mom. I mean, I was always admire her and thinking,
Me too.
how do you guys, and I mean that not in a
Yeah.
sexist way, how do you people
Yeah.
do this? Like, I'm a child advocate, but you were much more effective certainly on this file than we were. We could walk alongside you. And how do you do this? And I asked you today, I've asked Laura.
I don't think I
asked
gave you a
many
very good answer.
You gave me an answer.
I gave you an answer. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked
I wanted to impress you. So
You
I was
did.
thinking too hard.
I like the parent who said, we are relentless because we are trained to be relentless. If you are a parent of a child with autism, you must be relentless in how you care for that child. Because every day is a new day. Every day is a new challenge. You need to wake up with all the energy you have to work with your child, to ensure that they're going to have a good day, a good moment. It's tough. And we have to do it. We have no other choice. We get up and we do it. Doesn't matter how tired we are. It doesn't matter if we don't have what we need. We have to do it. And so we bring that skill to advocacy.
Yep.
We're relentless. We're trained by our kids how to be amazing advocates.
Yeah.
That was one of the only answers that made a lot of sense
That made
to me.
sense to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, impressive.
I'll try to do better next time.
Yeah.
So you have a little bit of a history with the OAC.
Mm-hmm.
And Laura told me a story. If your ears were burning,
No.
we talk about
I like Laura,
and I like Laura too, a lot. And so
I like
she
her whole
was.
family. They'll be mad if we don't mention
Oh,
them.
yes.
Bruce is kind of
Hello to Bruce.
He's okay.
Hello,
Clara.
Hello, Cliff.
Cliff,
We love you all.
I mean, Clara. Oh my God! I saw her give a speech at.
Yeah, I know.
At AO.
The apple does not fall far from the tree.
I
in
don't
that
know.
family.
She's gonna out-surpass her mom.
Oh,
See
for
that,
sure.
Clara? Go.
Go, Clara, go. Okay, but let's talk about you.
Yeah.
So I happen to know about some phases in Laura's life where she worked very, very, very hard on the OAC and was trying to dump it.
Yeah, I know.
And then she tried to put it in your lap.
Oh, is that what she was trying to do?
That's what she was trying to do.
I didn't know if she was trying to.
Didn't you know that? You
Well, I
didn't pick
remember
up on
those
it?
meetings.
You
but I
remember
didn't-
those? She
I
was
do.
trying to pass it on, hun.
Oh.
Yeah.
No.
You're
Too
and
smart for
she
that.
would do smart for that, yeah. But there was a little bit of a lull. They thought that they had won, and but they had this body of work that they wanted to somehow pass on. And so Laura did set up a series of meetings with you and Bruce, and something very interesting came from that. And I was wondering if you could tell us about the report that you created with a bunch of self-advocates.
Yeah. Well, so I didn't know Laura or Bruce then, but the way I understood them, they had won, but Laura also was like, she was at a point up and down and she was tired. I think I know how she feels, and had done amazing, effective work, and was saying, I'm not sure what to do next. And I told her that what I thought I wanted to do was I wanted young people who live with autism to come together with young people who live with all sorts of disabilities.
Let me just read this from Jesse. Because we have 1 foot in the present and 1 foot for the future, and what that future looks like.
That's why they're so strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good
sorry.
one, Jesse.
Yeah.
good one. Anyway, Laura, yeah, so we wanted to bring young people with a range of disabilities together to speak for themselves. And maybe because Laura was trying to pawn off things, I don't know, but she bought in. And my worry was, I told Laura that it will never work because everybody would want a slice of the pie. Like the organizations that serve people with physical disabilities would say, no, that's us. Or developmentally challenged young people's organizations would say, no, we want to argue for our piece of the pie. And then people would say, and the autism folks, well, they'll never come around the table, right?
Yeah.
And I said to Laura, that's not here, but you know what? I believe that if we don't deal with the organizations, just bring young people together, that won't happen.
Yeah.
And we did, and she helped, and I think at first we brought about 50 and then 100, 150 young people together from across Ontario. And they decided to write a report together called We Have Something to Say, and then hold together a listening table and an event with the ministry. And I think Laura might say, I don't know, she's told me this, I hope I'm not misquoting her, that
she's not here.
It was that experience working with young people that relit the fire on her, under her.
Yeah.
And she, again, took off, and we had to try and keep up from there. But that was always my experience, walking alongside young people and her own children, I think, surprising her with how eloquent and powerful they were. And as you said, sort of, I haven't got to that point yet, but being a parent and watching your children make you as proud as they must have made her and Bruce. Yeah, how can that not inspire you to say, I'm not giving up?
Yes.
And this challenge of this new government. I mean, thank God you guys are here. I want your view, your OAC members.
Yeah, we're not seeing a lot of people.
That's okay, but if
Please
they see this, I want them to realize, like, oh my God, can you imagine where this province would be today? And we're in a tough place, but where we would be if it wasn't for them.
Yeah.
That minister that we had, who we will not speak her name, she could still be the minister, for God's sake.
Yeah.
And the tone of the government that they say has changed, and I'm not convinced we'll see any results that are different, but the tone has changed. Yeah. That's direct result of the work that parents of children with autism have done. So when people tell you that, what about all the other kids? What about, well, you've changed the province for all of us. This fight you've taken on have changed the province for all of us, and it's up to all of us to step up and support you, and then use our voices to add to yours. There's enough room, as the young people, and we have something to say, proved. There's enough room for all the voices, and basically we want the same thing. Young people want the same thing. Yeah. They want to be seen as more than their disability. They want what they need when they need it in order to reach their full potential, and they don't want their parents disabled by their own disability. Yeah. They don't want their families disabled. Their families need support too. Yeah. So you have done wonders for the province. I believe. David
Lepofsky. Maybe it'd be fun to do.
I know David.
To do a live with you and David. That might be interesting.
Get a word in edgewise.
No, you'll never get a word in edgewise.
Well, both of us can imagine.
Oh, I'll interrupt you both. It'll be terrible. You'll both hate me at the end of it. But he said something to me one time. He said that the OAC is the tip of the spear that is bursting through the membrane, and not allowing. But see, I'm not using the right words either. But bringing other groups along with them. Yeah. And or Oprah Winfrey.
Have her come on.
I'll have her come on.
Yeah.
I remember her talking about she gets slagged a lot because she was just so far ahead of all the other talk show hosts and all that sort of stuff. And she said, well, you know what? Marathon runners know that when they're running a race, they have to keep their cadence and they always have to look ahead. And if they turn their head to the side or look backwards, they've lost their rhythm.
Yeah.
You know? And this is something Laura and I talk about an awful lot, you know, which is how we want to be laser beams when we work on a specific issue. And just because we're working on a specific issue does not mean we're not thinking about other things and other people. But if we make our ask very specific, we get more results, you know? And it's not about excluding anyone. It's about being focused, you know? But we are on the receiving end of a lot of criticism by some. And, you know, it's okay. It's okay. They can if they want.
It's hard, though.
It is hard sometimes.
It is.
It is hard sometimes.
It happens in lot. I think it's important for people to understand. You were telling me you were in the peace movement before.
Yes.
And it happens in many social justice movements. Certainly in movements around anti-racism or issues around feminism, LGBT issues. Those movements. There is the same tendency for people to turn on their own and not see where there's commonality of purpose.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard.
Really hard. Yeah, it is hard. Tracy asks, how can professionals best assist in advocacy efforts for their clients?
Yeah. Well, two things. I think it's important not to speak for your clients if they want to or can speak for themselves, and you don't speak for somebody without their permission. So you you have to listen to your quote-unquote clients, and they have to trust you enough to speak for them. But presuming you have that relationship and that understanding with the people you're serving, then I think it's really undertaking the advocacy that my staff would have, is make an advocacy plan, determine what would look like for that client, and make an advocacy plan for them, figure out what part you're going to do and what part they're going to do, and understand, I think, that you're offering what people in the service sector would call therapeutic support when you're advocating. It's not just you're advocating and that's something different than counseling. Actually, counseling is a partnership too. And so when you're talking about to a client about what they need and what they want and what good would look like and how you're going to get there, that's counseling. That's therapeutic for them and frankly for you as a service provider. And you have to have courage and allow them to borrow courage from you. I knew this and was told when I was doing work with young people, whether I was the advocate or before, I used to go home at night and I got paid, and I would go home at night to my house where the problems that I was dealing with the person I was advocating with, they got to go home to their problems. I got to go home to my house. And you need to understand that. So you can have more courage than they have and allow them to borrow and lean on you for that courage. And you have to believe. Not believe that you're going to get to the end goal, because you have to understand you can't control everything, and neither can the person you're partnering with. But you have to believe in them.
Yeah.
Genuinely believe in them.
Yeah.
That's different than caring about them, or people ask me, do we have to love child needs workers? We have to love the children we serve. And believing in them is different than loving and caring about them, and it's different than being curious in them.
Yeah.
Wanting to understand them. And
the love comes
people
later.
Yeah.
You know,
or not.
Or not.
It may not be necessary.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know. I benefited tremendously from the therapists in my son's life. As you say, like having some confidence that I would be able to take what I'm learning and bring it home or take it into the world. A lot of what I say is verbatim what my child's speech and language pathologist has driven into my tiny little brain, you know?
When I work with kids in care, people always used to ask me, even now they say, what? It must be so sad or so hard. And it really wasn't. And I've tried to figure out, well, why am I that shallow? Didn't get sad about it.
Yeah.
And I think it was because, I don't know why, but I believe that they could. Like, there's a way. They're going to be okay.
Yeah.
They might need my support. They need other supports, but they're going to get through this.
Yeah.
And one way or another, they're going to get through this. And it was that belief in every kid I met and every parent I met. Then if you know that they can get through this, then there's nothing to be said. Kids for sure, they don't want my pity. Or they want my understanding, not
Yes.
pity. That doesn't help them at all.
Yes.
So believing that they can get through means I'm not going to be sad.
Yeah.
I might be angry, but I'm not going to be sad for them.
Yeah. That's a very key thing that most of us will look for in teachers and therapists.
What's that?
Do they believe in the child that they're working with?
Yeah.
Do they believe that the kids are teachable, and do they believe that the kids will succeed? And that's kind of the core issue from a mom's point of view. If you're surrounded by professionals that don't believe the child is teachable or that the child will succeed, there's nothing to talk about, really.
There isn't. What's the point?
Yeah.
What?
You know?
It's that would, yeah.
That's a very, very difficult thing to accept, that those people exist alongside of amazing people who help. You know?
Yeah.
And maybe that's another reason why we're so relentless. So we must find them.
Yes.
We must find those people. We have no choice.
Mm-hmm.
Pat says, well, we've sort of been through this. Many questions. My question is, many are criticized for not advocating for all disabilities 100. So we kind of touched on that, Pat. I'll just move on. Sorry. Lee asks, also, can you offer suggestions for family members who are trying to navigate the now defunct system of autism services, i.e., is there a case management service, legal services that you're aware of?
Do you know? You'd know better than me. I don't know.
We exist to create those things.
Maybe you know this better than me, but there is a service resolution system that the ministry used to have. I think they still have. And if people are stuck, do they go to those systems? And
I don't know. Maybe somebody could post.
I used to hear that the service resolution systems were different in different parts of the province, and some were better than others. We were just about to do a review of service resolution before we were closed.
Oh, before you were closed.
Mm-hmm.
Convenient.
The ombudsman could still do that, but
ombudsman.
Yeah.
Jesse says, what would you suggest to parents who are advocating for their children and have and not have them burn out from disappointments by outcomes? It's a really good question, Jesse.
It is. I don't know. When our office closed, I said to the staff, there were two things that I wanted them to do, because there were two things that they could control and what was happening. One was take care of themselves. And I guess it sounds trite because I don't know an answer to a parent, but I do know that taking care of themselves is so crucial for the parent to do, to be there for their child in the long run.
Yeah. And
knowing that they can't control everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Except they can take care of themselves, and then they can. The second thing I told my staff was to be kind to each other, and because you can control that.
You can control that.
And you can't do one without the other, and that's the same for parents. To be kind to their children, to be good to their children, they need to take care of themselves.
Yeah. And
do that first, and then be good to your child, and have a belief that if you do both those things, at some level, good things can come out of that.
We send out weekly reminders on Saturdays. It is the Self-Care Saturday, and when I send those reminders out, I do feel a little hippy-dippy. You know, I do feel like I'm probably
I used to hate that too.
perceived as the crystal-loving, hippy-dippy person, but I really mean that shit. Like, if you, parents and self-advocates, don't find a way to decompress, you can't take the pressure.
Decompress without feeling guilty.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. I have no problem saying no to things because I know that if I don't, I won't survive. And we try to remind those of us who've been in this a little longer than some of the parents of younger children, the burnout factor, like, we love their passion. We love their hard work. We love their conviction. But, whoa, you know, be careful. Be careful, because we lose people. We lose good people along the way who get disheartened, you know. So how did you, this is personal, but you were really punched in the gut when the office closed. That's a really tough blow.
Mm.
So what did you do after that? Because you're here with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here you are. You're on Twitter. You're fighting the fight. You're still giving her.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you got sucker punched.
Yes.
You know? So
personally, I was supposed to, I said already I was supposed to retire and have a pension, and I'm fine. So
I know you're fine.
But
I know.
What was hurtful to me more was I have staff that didn't have jobs. Yeah. I have young people who counted on that office being there who don't have that anchor anymore. I was thinking about young people who were in group homes and despite the ombudsman's office, don't have somebody to call who will be able to say, we're there, whatever you need.
Yeah. Tell
us what's going on. It's not what the ombudsman's office does. So that was pretty painful, and so I had to try and stay on to do as much as I could to sort of ease that pain from when I left. But I'm not gonna say that I'm not angry about it. But my wife, even after this, if we go back with this lens on everything we've talked about, she's always told me, Irwin, like, everything is not, no matter how hard you make it, try to make it, Irwin, everything is not all about you. And and she said, this decision about your office is not about you. It's actually not even about your office, right? It's about something bigger that this government is doing. It's about something bigger that this government represents in the grand scheme of liberal democratic governments across the world. It's right-wing populism. So it's something that's much bigger than you. And you have to understand that. And so I guess I'm still angry about it, but I'm more angry, frankly, than the things that have happened since. Yeah. I'm angry what happened to autism program. I'm angry about, really, we have this government that argued that increasing class size is going to be helpful to make students more resilient. They have said that. Now they say it when I've said, oh, we don't say that anymore. Yeah, but you gave the minister who did an award and put her picture up in the Ministry of Education, and you've never refuted it. And it comes from Donald Trump's America, from that ridiculous argument. Yeah. Those things just...
And the same guys that said that working on children's issues is not what they're going to do, right? In the beginning when we were chatting. Very flippantly.
He's gone.
He's gone.
As I mentioned, it was one of my worst tweets.
He's with tourism now.
I think I tweeted him. He had a nice little
I have one last question, and thank you all who've been chiming in. We really appreciate it. We are reading. Laura. Well, we'll just let Laura say something, won't we? No, forget about
Edit
Laura.
It first. What did you say?
We went through service resolution, but I think the only reason we got there was because we got a good case manager and the advocate's office was involved.
Yeah, we used to use service resolution.
Yeah. So I have one question, last question. And Angela, you wanted to say something about housing, but I wanted to know what that specific question is. So if you're still watching, please post it quickly. We've done an hour, and I need to wind down. And this is a super long question from Louise. But Louise is she's a tremendous advocate. Most people on Facebook won't know her, but it's long. Here we go. In Ontario, we have many ministries, agencies, professionals, etc., writing policies.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that we're lacking is any requirement for the implementation of these policies.
Mm-hmm.
No one is looking at individual children to see their needs are being met. We seem to have a system where the government throws money up in the air and whoever can jump the highest gets it. Of course, this will always be all of the professionals and never the children. We have a system that perpetuates bullying of families by professionals with no consequences for their unprofessional behavior. How we get some accountability from professionals in Ontario. So how do we get some accountability from professionals in Ontario so parents can focus on parenting and kids can just be kids?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the biggest problem I think that bureaucrats have is that they have to, there's a huge chasm. Even when you get the new autism program, there'll be a gap between the nice words and what actually happens on the ground. Parents and kids know this. And when the best of times, when ministries are operating with integrity, and ministers they're even frustrated by, they learn that just because you say something at the ministry level or policy level, that doesn't mean it happens on the ground. And so there's struggle, and they've never really gotten around to really struggling with this well, is how do we make our good intentions at the ministry level happen in the lives of children? Okay. And I think the problem is really the fundamental problem is it's not necessarily about silos and systems. It's about the way in which you create policy. And I feel like the policy and services need to be developed on the ground and work their way up rather than from the top down.
Right.
That's the only way you have a chance of making things real on the ground, because then you can build systems and services in the way that, is it Louise?
Yep.
Louise talks about, that has accountability, that allows parents and children to just be themselves. And you build the structure after you've identified what the function is.
Sounds good.
Yeah. One day.
You're gonna get your job back, you think? One day?
Not my job. No. I'm retired.
You're retired?
I think one
day. Are you done?
Formally, yeah.
Yeah, formally?
Yeah, I think so.
You
do a lot of stuff.
You want to join the OAC board?
You don't want to have
Just kidding.
Yeah. Laura.
I made a pitch. I won't make him answer in front of, all of the family.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. And did Angela post? Okay. We really appreciate your time. This was a great conversation.
I hope it was.
I think so. What do you think, everybody? It's not bad. It's okay.
We'll do it again.
In truth, I didn't get very many questions from our population. And I think that when I do something new, I know that folks may not know what I'm on about. Mm-hmm. I read the news. I was paying attention to what happened to you in the office, and Laura and I talk a lot. So I was well informed, I think, as to what happened. And I thought, you would be the ideal person to talk to our community as somebody who is somewhat on the outside but also on the inside, and you did collaborate with us. A lot of our parents and self-advocates actually don't know how many friends we have in the advocacy community. And you're one of them, and an extremely important one.
Thank you.
So thank you for
It's
your
an honor
time
to walk
tonight,
with you.
and talking to a virtual stranger, and letting me poke at your personal life a little bit. I'm sorry, but for us, the political is personal.
Yeah, I understand.
That's, we go there. We talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Peace.
Wait there.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us. Oh, I'm not using this mouse. I'm using that one. Okay. Bye. And chat. And end.